I think you have to ask your customers, why do they buy from you?
Okay.
And that will help guide you. I think it might have been Wolf Schmidt Vodka, where they actually took a look at the market and realized in the United States, people didn't really know a lot about vodka. I mean, they drank it, but the average consumer did not know the difference between a good vodka and a mediocre vodka. And so for a lot of them, the signal that this was a good vodka was that it was higher priced.
Okay.
And so they pulled the product off the market, reintroduced it, introduced it at a higher price, and sold more. Sold more.
Yeah.
Because the price communicated this was a good vodka. Your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room.
Okay.
And I think that you need to figure out what you want people to say. And then figure out how you create marketing to get them to say that. Well, the big question, of course, with user-generated content is why? Why bother? And the answer is because there is a level of authenticity that your users will create that you just can't replicate.
Hi, my name is Rahi, and I am an e-commerce retention expert. So I welcome you all to this podcast. And in this, we have with us Lorraine. So Lorraine Ball is the marketing strategist and successful entrepreneur, author, and professional speaker. She has been into podcasting for 13 plus years and enjoys sharing her experience in marketing with the with the audience. And earlier, she was in corporate America in bureaucracy. However, she made a decision to switch gears and pursue her passion to help small businesses owners succeed in their marketing. And hi, Lauren. So, if you
Hi.
can, hi. So, just as we are recording, we are at the end of the year. So, if you can give me what's your prediction for next year and top three trends you feel which will be coming up next year in marketing, mainly for marketing. So.
Absolutely. So, 2023 was a really interesting year with the advent of AI and everybody, ChatGPT coming online and everybody starting to play with it. And I do not think that 24 will be as chaotic, but I do think you're going to see more thoughtful integration of AI into marketing. I think most marketing professionals are now figuring out how and where it is appropriate to use it. And the successful marketers are going to balance original content with AI. And I think that is definitely the trend you're going to see more and more. I think a lot of people thought, oh, well, I'll just have AI write my blog posts in 23. And what they realized is the posts didn't do very well, that the content was very generic, it was boring, and it was getting ignored. The smart marketers have definitively gone, I'm going to use AI, but I'm going to use it selectively. I'm going to give it one of my blog posts and maybe ask it to write some new titles or break it up into an outline or short summaries. And I think you're going to see more of that.
Okay.
The second trend that I think is really interesting is a return to text. Everybody is focusing on video, and there's definitely a place for that.
Okay.
But we are really seeing this return to longer text-based posts in social media, and a lot of that is driven by the platforms that are now really rewarding and creating this culture of zero click.
Okay.
In other words, if you have a link in your content back to your blog, your visibility is going to be significantly less. And even if you create the blog or the article and you put it in the comments, it's really still going to be, I think, a little bit derated versus just putting the content on the platform and building the authority on the platform, because that's definitely where the market is going.
Okay, okay. Yeah, text, that's quite unusual. So that's but it makes sense. It makes sense at so many places. And I think with text, the skimmability, like you can skim the content, you can get the gist out quickly compared to a video
Hmm.
post. So video is you have to consume the whole video or find some way. So yeah, text is a interesting trend. I like the thread one, like thread trend from your perspective.
One more. I think that as you're looking at the market and looking at where are people going,
Okay.
obviously video is going to be there. I
Yeah.
think there's going to be more emphasis on what I call the point of origination, where a
Okay.
lot of people are foolishly creating video just for TikTok or just for Instagram or whatever their platform of choice is,
Yeah.
and there is no cohesion. And again, I think you're starting to see smart marketers go, no, the website needs to be point of origination. And
Okay.
then from there, you take excerpts. You start with long form and break it up into lots of short form, where I think people had been doing more, let's just create
Content repurpose.
content and get it everywhere. And now what they're saying is, no, you've got to be more strategic. You've got to start with the long form content on your website and then break that up.
Yeah. No, no, makes sense, makes sense. And I think in our perspective also, the long form content, like long articles and long videos have that origination, point of origination, or originality to it. And then you can always break down and repurpose the content and make it shorts or make it like a small post or like a thread or those kind of things. So original content always helps, and original research will always be, I think, long form. Like you can't do original research in 60 seconds. So I think uh, yeah.
I think there is a place for both, and I
Yeah.
think that it's not impossible to go the other way. I've done that with short blog posts where you build them into like a book or a resource, but it
Okay.
is much easier to do it the other way, to start with the long
Yeah.
form and break it up.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, makes sense, makes sense. And next, on your expertise, given your expertise on user generated content, so I wanted to go because when we talk about user generated content, as a business owner also and as an agency owner, like we face three issues. One is like how you get it out, because you are not in charge, like you need to get that done from the customers, so that's a tricky part. Second is how you package it or how you use it to your to max to your benefit. And then there is always a negative, how you handle the negative perception. So if you can start with how we can get high quality user generated content generated, and then how we repackage and how we promote it. So
Absolutely. Well, the big question, of course, with user generated content is why? Why bother? And the answer is because there is a level of authenticity that your
yeah.
users will create
Yeah.
that you just can't replicate. They will say things in their words and how they describe something that you may never have thought of. And so the
Yeah.
challenge is, how do you collect it?
Yeah.
And it is surprisingly easy because people people participate in social media for a lot of reasons, but
Okay.
one of the big ones is ego. They want to be noticed. And so if you throw a question out on social media or you run a small contest, it doesn't even have to have a big prize.
Okay.
People will participate if part of the prize is visibility for their content.
Okay.
I don't know if he does it anymore, but Jimmy Fallon here in the US on
Yeah.
The Late Show used to
Yeah.
throw out a question every now and then on Twitter. And it'd be a silly question, but he
Okay.
would read some of the answers during the live broadcast
Yeah.
later that night. And so people would tell their stories hoping that he
Yeah.
would pick their story. And so just
Yeah.
that positive reinforcement goes a
Yeah.
long way to cultivating content.
Yeah.
You can also run contests. Lay's Potato Chips does
Yeah.
this. They run a contest where you select or you suggest a potato chip flavor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they have voting where people vote on their favorite, the one that sounds good. And
Yeah.
then they actually manufacture your flavor and they do a story about you and it's your picture. And I don't know, there may be a cash prize, but I
Yeah.
will guarantee you that people are doing it because they want to be able to say, that flavor of potato chip, that
Yeah.
was my idea. And so
Yeah.
when you can create contests that allow people to share their opinion, share their experiences, and maybe give them an opportunity to point back to it and say, that was me. I did that. It's
Yeah.
it's incredibly powerful.
Yeah. 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 And uh, with that, because we mainly work with e-commerce brands, so when you said about like branded hashtags, so how, because some brands are able to build a movement around their niche, like Warby Parker has been able to do that, like with a successful hashtag. And there is one I think there is one yoga company which does a very good this thing, I'm forgetting the name, but so they have a very big branded hashtag which everyone use, like yoga life or hard life or anything like that. But for most of the brands, it's one hashtag, one, they don't own any hashtag sort of. So what's your take around
So,
that? Like,
well, first off, I think you need to do your homework. I think you need to figure out if your audience is
yeah,
using a hashtag. And,
okay,
where are the conversations? Take a look at what your competitors are doing, but more importantly, take a look at what your customers are doing.
okay,
When they're sharing content, are they sharing the hashtag? Um,
okay,
and then again, starting and igniting a hashtag with a contest is a really good way to get the ball rolling.
yeah,
Creating an incentive. Hey,
yeah,
we're looking for people, and Warby Parker does this really well, where they look for people wearing their sunglasses,
yeah,
telling us stories with your product.
yeah,
We worked for there. It's funny. It's a little company that makes beans,
okay,
uh, navy beans, cannoli beans, kidney
okay,
beans in
yeah,
glass,
yeah,
and they sell them in glass jars. And
okay,
we built quite a following by asking people to take photographs of dishes they made
using that,
using the product. And
okay,
so, part of it is being able to give people a reason to share. And then again, hey, the only way we're going to see your content is if you use this hashtag.
yeah, yeah,
The other thing on social media, and I think companies that do this well
yeah,
um, understand that a little bit of fun,
yeah,
you know, is important. The United States, their National Park Service
yeah,
has the funniest Instagram and Twitter feed. They love doing photographs of
yeah,
animals in the wild,
yeah,
but really doing some just, cute, funny, and then in between, they have just these really funny little one liners, I think, that probably started on Twitter.
yeah,
And having a little bit of fun
yeah,
builds the momentum. If you're serious, it's not going to fly on social media. It may fly in your business, it may fly in the real world,
yeah,
but people don't come to
yeah,
Twitter or X or whatever it is now, or
yeah,
Instagram.
yeah.
They don't come there for serious, they come there for fun.
Yeah, like Wendy's keep on taking a dig at like McD or those so those kind of you want that kind of like cola, not cola, like cola war is not there prominently on Twitter, I guess, but like Wendy versus McD, they've been always been there. So
Absolutely. The little bit of good natured, uh,
trolling.
You'll see it, some of the candy bars go back and forth.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's always funny, like, because Wendy's, again, they're an example of a
yeah,
company I think that's very good on social media.
yeah,
Sometimes they will say something to someone else who will just snap back at them and be really funny.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
you have other times where they say something and the company doesn't have anyone on their social media team who
yeah,
gets it and who understands how
yeah,
to respond, and the response is just flat.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. So, okay, okay. So now this is how we get them to generate. Like, how far should we go to promote this? Like, because currently the latest trend on Facebook advertising or this, that there's a lot of UGC based video ads. So instead of you telling about the product, they use a UGC based content and repackage that video as an ad. Or there is always like carousel on the website. There is always like lookbook. Or those kind of campaigns, and sometimes you have to, like, most of the times you have to take the permission. Sometimes they are influencer who have been already like prepaid, like they have been like shared the samples with. So like how far you should go with the promoting UGC content, or
I
is
think that I think that it really depends on what your objectives are with your business. What are you trying to accomplish, and will that content help you do that?
okay,
If you have a choice between the owner of the company talking about a product
yeah,
or a customer, I would
okay,
vote for the customer every day.
yeah,
Every day.
yeah,
Because they're going to have more credibility. They're
yeah,
going as long now. I also think if you are going to share it,
yeah,
you have to make sure you watch the whole video. You have to make sure that it represents you the way that you want to be represented.
okay,
That is always the risk,
yeah,
whether you're using celebrities or whether you're using user generated content, that they say or do something that is associated with your brand
okay,
that you don't want
yeah, yeah,
associated with your brand. But
okay,
yeah, I would, if you get, if you run a contest and you tell people in the contest, we're going to use your
your content,
responses in our
yeah,
advertising.
yeah,
Oh, heck yes.
yeah, 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 yeah.
I'll give you a
um,
really good example. We had an optometrist. He was opening up, he had an adult practice, and
okay,
he was opening a pediatric practice. And
okay,
we ran a contest that had a really great prize
okay,
if you submitted a photograph of your child wearing glasses.
okay,
He
okay,
got
okay.
hundreds of photos. And guess
Yeah,
what? We had hundreds of images we could use in advertising for his
yeah,
practice.
okay, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, like, do you feel that there will be some point, there will be saturation, or people can, because just on this part, because some brands are trying to hack this, because they might not be real customers, they might be influencers, or someone like some, I think, studios are also providing those kind of real customer shots or those kind of things. So, will the audience will be able to tell the difference, or
Well, so the thing is that companies get away with it for a little while,
okay,
but if somebody figures it out, it's
yeah,
really bad. The
yeah,
the
yeah,
blowback against companies that hire an actor and
yeah,
don't say it's an actor,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
there is blowback. There used to be on television, if you
okay,
hired someone, you had to say in fine print,
yeah,
this person is an actor, they're not really a doctor.
yeah,
Social media took that away. You don't have to
yeah,
tell the truth, but you
yeah,
don't ever want to get caught. But
okay,
one of the other interesting things, and they're not lying about it, they're being very upfront. There's a social media influencer, and she's not the only one. And she's got, I don't know, 1 million followers, 2 million followers.
yeah,
She's not real. She's AI generated. You look at the photograph and you think, oh my God, that's a real teenage girl.
person,
And then
yeah,
you read, and in her bio, it says she's a robot living in California.
Okay.
And she's not kidding. She really is AI
Yeah.
generated, and she gets paid, or her creators get paid thousands of dollars for
Yeah.
her to promote a product because she
Yeah.
has a following, because she's funny, and because she's controllable. You never have to worry.
Yeah. Will
Well,
she
at
do
least
something?
unless you're watching some Terminator film, you never
Yeah.
have to worry that the robot is going to go off the rails.
Yeah. Yeah. Like there is a this is little bit off topic, but because you mentioned this example, so we were discussing about the limitation of AI. So currently the AI limitation was around the expert business model, or if you are like a, so AI is like at undergrad level or this level, but AI is not at PhD level or something, in the terms of expertise or in the terms of content knowledge. So uh, if and the assumption was that people will not follow AI for advice, like they will need eventually real people, but like it's happening in this case. So you think there is a lot of potential in that, like AI can become a big influencer or like big authority, like what I'm saying, like more AI can become an Oprah or like those kind of celebrities which have authority and which have like expertise and field knowledge. So
I think that there are limitations, and part of it is part of what makes Oprah. I mean, an intelligent woman,
yeah.
and maybe AI can replicate some of the insights. Though I have not yet seen examples. I've seen examples of repackaging and summarizing. I have not seen examples of independent thought. And
Yeah.
that's what you go to a thought leader for.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
other thing for someone like Oprah, there is a personality element.
Yeah.
There is a part of her that is the warmth and the charisma
Yeah.
that at least right now AI cannot replicate. Will they be able to someday? I've seen a lot of things in my life, so I won't say never.
Okay.
But that that piece, and with AI,
Yeah.
and this is years of reading science fiction and watching science fiction movies.
Yeah.
The one reason that humanity always comes out on top is the ability to think out of the box
Okay.
and break all of the rules
Yeah.
that we've written down.
Yeah.
You always do it this way, you always do it that way. AI will always do it this way. They'll
Yeah.
always do it that way.
Okay.
But I can look at it and go, yeah, I know, we always do it this way, but I'm not going to.
Okay.
And that's, at least for now, the human advantage.
Okay. So the repeatability or predictability will be the enemy, like will be the like shortcoming eventually. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Well, the other thing is okay, think about it. AI summarizes the internet to
Yeah.
find their answers. The
Yeah.
more AI generated content that's out there, the
Yeah.
more it circles in on itself. And the
Yeah.
only way that you break the cycle is by creating something completely new, creating a
Yeah.
completely new conversation, creating a completely new blog post, and
Okay.
putting that into the mix. And
Yeah.
AI can't do that.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, no, like makes sense, and I think that's a shortcoming. That's a shortcoming. So, but like they will get there. Like I don't know, because the way things are moving, maybe in next 2 years or 3 years, I don't know, but it's still it's not there yet. Like in that sense. So coming back to the UGC piece, so one last piece was like because for some brands, if you go aggressively on UGC, so they are always afraid about negative publicity, or they are always afraid about the, if something, some customer will like a bad mouth and it will go viral or those kind of things, so they tend to hold themselves back. And it has happened, like it's not that the fear is unfounded, but what's your take, and how the brand should be able to tackle that, like or handle any negative PR?
So you cannot control what customers say about you,
Yeah.
and um, a lot of brands are like, well, I don't want people putting reviews on my site because I can't control it. Okay,
Yeah.
they won't put it on your site,
Yeah.
doesn't mean they won't put it out there.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, that was a thing. For a while, companies wouldn't accept comments on their Facebook page. I don't want somebody
Okay.
to say something negative. You know what?
Yeah.
They're just going to put it on their page, and you have zero control.
Yeah.
So grow a pair and respond. Recognize that negative feedback, bad
Okay.
reviews are a gift because it
Okay.
is an opportunity for you to demonstrate how good you are. You're
Okay.
never going to win an argument in public when somebody says you have a crappy product.
Yeah.
So don't argue. Simply respond with, I'm sorry you were disappointed. Not I'm sorry we screwed up. Not I'm sorry we did something wrong. I'm sorry you were disappointed.
Okay.
Let's talk about how
Yeah.
we can resolve this.
Okay.
And then invite the person to take the conversation offline.
Okay. Okay.
What is left behind? Anybody else who comes along and sees that, what's
Okay.
left behind is this, oh, okay, they made a mistake,
Yeah.
but they owned up and they handled it.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
if 1 out of every 10 of your reviews is bad,
Yeah.
okay, I'm looking at it as a customer going, I have a 90% chance of getting a
Wow.
good product.
Good, good.
I have a 10% chance of having a problem, but you know what? They seem to
Yeah.
be okay with reaching out.
Yeah.
Now, if 7 or 8 out of 10 of your reviews are crappy,
Yeah.
you got a bigger problem than 7 or 8 bad reviews. You
Yeah.
you have something wrong with your product.
In your experience, like what's the effective marketing strategies you recommend for brands? Like, so coming to the email marketing, because this we run an email marketing agency, and about the email side of things. So, how what's the like? There's two part to the question. One is email tend to be strategy tend to be different for the scale the brand ad, so it tend to be like for a small business versus a big, the strategy will be different. But if we can break it up from for the starting out brand or like a small brand, what's your go-to strategy for email marketing? And we will also talk about like mid-size or a seven-figure business. So
So, number one, I think that regardless of the size of the business, regardless of the industry that you're in, regardless of how long you've been in business, that
yeah.
there are marketing basics that apply. And the
Okay.
single biggest basic is knowing who your customer is and
Okay.
what it is they want. And so
Okay.
as you are creating email marketing strategies, as
Okay.
long as you never forget that and you
Okay.
always keep that in the front as you're creating your content, you
Okay.
have a good start.
Okay.
So, for small businesses just starting out, you don't have a big email list.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Okay.
It is harder to build an email list today than it used to be because let's face it, we all, 20
Default.
years ago when I started my company, I said, hey, I've got an email. And everybody went, oh, that's cool. I'll sign up. People don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So you do have to be more creative, create incentives. Nobody
Yeah.
wakes up in the morning and says, you know what? I want to be on another email list.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to give them a reason. And so as you put a sign up form on your website, you have to tell people what they're going to get.
Okay.
Excuse me. You have to tell them that perhaps they're going to get a weekly update with tips to do X, Y, or Z. Or
Okay.
maybe they trade the email. Give us your email and we'll give you this 10-page report. We'll
Okay.
give you this workbook.
Okay.
And regardless of the business you're in, you need to think about what do you know that your
Okay.
customers don't? And
Okay.
that's what you offer.
Okay.
So that's number one. Number two, when you start sending out emails, you need to watch your bounces, you need to watch your unsubscribes, you need to pay attention to your spam reports
Yeah.
because that information will tell you
Yeah.
Are the people I'm sending this to interested?
Yeah. Yeah.
I have an email list that I started in 2002. Okay, so it's a
Okay.
long time I've had that list.
Yeah.
And I've added to, and it's grown and it's shrunk, and I've cleaned it up. But there are people on that list who have been getting my email newsletters since 2002. And
Yeah.
my open rate is still 35%. So even after all these years,
Yeah.
and it's because when people get bored and stop opening it, I send
Yeah.
them a note and I say, hey, do you still want to be on the list? And if
Okay.
they say no, or if they don't respond,
Yeah.
I take them off. It's okay.
Yeah.
They weren't interested. You
Yeah.
know, convincing yourself you have a business because you have an email list of 10,000 people with a 5% open rate,
Yeah.
you don't. You
Yeah.
have an email list of 500 people.
Yeah.
So get rid of your dead weight. Get rid
Okay.
of the people who aren't opening it. Get rid of the people. If the emails bounce, they're bad. Clean them up.
Yeah.
A lot of email tools, you pay for the size of your list.
Yeah.
So if you've got a lot of dead weight, you're
Yeah.
paying for the dead weight.
Okay. 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 And because there is a lot of confusion, like for small brands, basically, that how you personalize at scale, because email is a personalization channel, and there is a lot of scope around the how you can personalize the structure, because you can have one-on-one conversation, like it can't be done on social media, it can't be done on any other channel, but with email you can have that one-on-one conversation. So how you personalize this thing? So
So first off, if you have multiple collection points on your website,
okay.
create multiple lists so you know how somebody came to you. You
Okay.
know how you connected.
Okay.
And like for my business, I would have a list of people who had downloaded something to do with web design or with logo design or content marketing. And
Okay.
then, depending on what they were interested in,
Yeah.
I would send them different content.
Okay.
Sometimes I sent everybody the same thing, and
Okay.
sometimes I would send different content.
Okay.
I would send surveys periodically to my list and say, hey,
Okay.
which of these topics are you interested in? And I
Okay.
might spend an hour or two cleaning people up and moving them to
Okay.
specific lists based
Okay.
on their interests.
Okay.
And I also do something, it's called click to join, where if
Yeah.
you click on something in my email newsletter, maybe there are 4 articles,
Okay.
but there's 2 that are about web design. If
Okay.
you click on the web design links, I'm going to move you out of the general list and
Okay.
into the web design list.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so, as much as possible,
Okay.
and also over time, collect information about your community.
Okay.
So I know for a lot of these people, I know, especially when I was running the agency,
Okay.
where did I meet them? How did I meet them? So I
Okay.
could do an email just for people who I met through Smaller Indiana, or just for people who had taken one of my courses. And
Okay.
so the content is different, and
But
it feels more personal and more relevant.
But the challenge we face with this strategy is that how you justify the ROI, because if you are sending to few people, then would it lower the impact, or reduce the because the effort remains the same, you have to still draft the same email and this thing, uh, is there any fine balance between ROI and personalization, or it's like personalization is higher than ROI, like how you balance these two things?
Well, so for example, this is where marketing automation comes in.
Okay.
If you download something from my website, you'll get
Yeah.
a series of emails based on what you downloaded,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you will. But I'm not writing those emails, they're already written. You're
Okay.
new to my list.
Okay.
So I've got some introductions, some links. Periodically, I'll go through and update them. But basically, what I rely on automation to create that initial personalization. When
Okay.
I do that, then I have an opportunity after a period of time to
Okay.
send kind of the more general stuff. You're
Okay.
on a list where you're getting a certain kind of information. And then if you take one of my classes, if back in the day, if you asked me for a quote, guess what? You went on another list that
Yeah.
was just targeted for that.
Okay.
So, yes, they are personalized,
Yeah.
but they are personalized around avatars and around interests and
Okay.
around the flow of your business. So it's not like every time I did a proposal, I wrote a
Okay.
personal email. I didn't have to because everybody who got a proposal from me needed the same information.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But it felt personal. It wasn't over designed. It didn't have a big banner. It just felt like they were getting a note from me. And the funniest thing was people would reply to it and they would reply in such a way that I knew they thought I had just dashed it off, kind of like had they
On the
popped in
fly.
my head and I just dashed them off the thought.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
key in making it personal is in the
Okay.
writing.
Okay. 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 But okay, so how to offset the like the effort side of things is like use automation so you don't have to put up labor, and it can be like maximize returns. Okay, okay, okay. In terms of this thing, like with the crowded inbox, so how you get that attention? Like so, last on email is about like because people might be getting like more than 100 emails a day or more maybe. So how you get that like a connection or get that like consistent opens or not opens, but just it need to be effective, like consistently effective, which you have
I
been doing for
think
last 20 years. So,
when you encourage someone to sign up for your email list,
yeah.
you're making a promise about the kind of content you're going to deliver.
Okay.
And if you want people to open your email and continue to open your email, you have
Yeah.
to live up to that promise. And in my experience, the vast majority of email that I receive where I unsubscribe from the list, it's because
Okay.
the person didn't live up to the promise. They sent it too often. They sent crappy emails. They were too
Okay.
promotional.
Okay.
They didn't fulfill
Okay.
a need for me. They fulfilled a need for them.
Okay.
And you have to recognize that people will unsubscribe. That's
Okay.
part of the lifespan of a newsletter.
Yeah.
Invite people to unsubscribe.
Okay.
Encourage the people who are not really interested to get off your list,
Okay.
because then you can really see the
Okay.
people who are left.
Okay.
What are they responding to? What aren't they responding to? I
Okay.
will tell you that clicks have gone way down. It's I can still get the same number of people to open my email or the same percentage of people, but if it's not right in the email, it's
Okay.
much harder. And so your call to actions have to be more compelling,
Okay. Okay.
and the payoff has to be better.
Okay. 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 I think anything you want to add to email side of things, like there is a long argument about email is dead, but anything
Okay,
like what's your
now
take?
there's
Yeah.
there's the when they first opened up
Yeah.
Facebook to
Yeah.
adults, there
Yeah.
was a lot of conversation about the death of email. That
Yeah.
email was dead, it was going to die.
Yeah.
And the reality is, it ain't dead yet. And it
Yeah.
isn't going to die anytime soon, because it is still, texting is cool, posting on social media is fine. But
Yeah.
email is a very specific type of communication, and
Yeah.
businesses are going to continue to rely on it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's no, and yeah, I think from a ROI perspective, it's still the highest ROI medium. So from that, and I think the main part is about the personalization angle, like one-on-one conversation, and the cost doesn't increase as you increase the base. Like for Facebook, for every, like if you have to double your impressions, you have to pay like more than double, I guess, like for the CPM, increasing CPM. But email, that's not the case. So the as more users you have, the ROI keeps on getting better and better. So cool. Next on this is as we want to discuss into like retention side of things. So uh, like if you can walk us through, because you have been into multiple businesses and doing consulting. So what's your like take on how to convert users into like loyal customers, or what's the journey has been, or what's your framework which every business needs to hit, like 2 3 points to create visitors to loyal customers? So
Wow. Um, I think the challenge is that different businesses have very different funnels, and you have to understand the funnel. You have to understand what I call the rhythm of your business.
okay.
For example, there are some businesses where customers are going to buy the product over and over again, and you
Yeah.
have a real opportunity to build not just a customer, but a loyal customer, a raving fan who then becomes your kind of referral partner. And that
Okay.
is a very different journey than a business where it is something a customer buys once or twice, maybe in a lifetime.
Okay.
And you have to know what you want to accomplish when someone comes to your website.
Okay.
For example, I worked a lot with home services professionals. So,
Okay.
flooring companies, heating and air conditioning companies, people don't remodel their house
Yeah.
regularly. You know, they may put down new flooring once in the
Okay.
25 years they own their home.
Yeah.
And so, in those businesses,
Yeah.
your very first call to action has to be schedule an appointment. If
Okay.
you've come to the website, schedule an appointment. Not
Yeah.
ready to schedule? Here's some other cool stuff.
Okay.
Schedule
Okay.
an appointment. The businesses where, like the bean company, where somebody's going to
Yeah.
buy a jar of beans over and over again.
Yeah.
Now you can take them on this journey of here's how you use the product, here's customers who love it, and you can
Okay.
have a much more long term conversation. So,
Okay.
the very first thing you need to do is you need to understand your funnel.
Okay.
What are the decision points? What information do people need along that journey? And figure out how you're going to deliver it to them.
Okay. 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 And like from a user perspective, how's like supposedly for like not a one-time product, like one-time product, I would say one like for a services or like one-time activity, it would be best to get a referral out of them, like as a repeat. But apart from that, but for more consumable or like a consumable product, it's uh, what's the effort area, like what I'm trying to get it is like in the terms of retaining, is it more about the next purchase discount, is it more about like the benefit of the product, or the benefit of the first purchase, or is it more about the brand identity, like how we get to that point where like
I think
brands can get to retention? So
I think you have to ask your customers why
okay.
do they buy from you,
Okay.
and
Okay.
that will help guide you. If your customers tell you over and over again they buy from you because of your customer service, then
Okay.
as you're building stories about your brand and you're taking people on a journey to buy your product or service, you need to highlight your customer service. You need to personalize your customer service. We had a heating and air conditioning contractor who had a great service business, and he had people who had him clean their furnace and air conditioner twice a year, and had been doing this for years and years and years. And when we asked them, why do you do it? And they're like, well, because they just take care of us. And oh, I love talking to Sharon twice a year. I call her, she calls me, she checks in.
Yeah.
Well, we put Sharon on their Facebook page. We did a little video about
Okay.
Sharon and a little video about each of the service techs. Now, in another business, it was, why do you keep buying this product? I can use it in so many different ways. I love that just when I think I know everything about it. Well, then we started sharing stories of find out how our customers are using the product, see pictures of this or that. The other thing, and this is something that companies, I work with a theater festival, and it absolutely makes me nuts.
Okay.
The two main people who come to their website are people who are buying tickets
Yeah.
and volunteers signing up for their shifts.
Okay.
And it is so hard to find where I have to go to sign up for my shift. Knowing who's coming to your website, why are they coming, and what is the most important thing they need, not what you want them to see. And the best way to get to that is pull up a computer screen, put a customer in front of it, and watch them navigate your website.
Okay.
Don't say anything, just watch them. And when you see them getting frustrated, now you're like, okay, we've got this gap. We have something wrong that
Yeah.
needs to be fixed.
Yeah. 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 Like the I think heuristic analysis, or like this is more under where you screen record this thing for the user. Like I because this is very interesting point about that why they are buying again. So there was a quote like the people don't know that why someone their customer is their customer. I think this is from so why their customer is their customer, and why they didn't bought from the competition, but also why they are buying it again. And I think that's also because when we work with brands, some brands have a clear understanding about their repeat patterns and why customers are buying again. And maybe it's like a cosmetic or this thing, but still it's always. So what's your recommendation, like conducting user customer interviews, or like group surveys, or qualitative quantitative, like how you approach
Well, when it comes to market research,
yeah.
it really depends where you are in the funnel. If
Okay.
you're trying to get a big picture perspective, you don't really know what you don't know, then I
Okay.
think focus groups, mall intercepts, casual
Okay.
conversations are great.
Okay.
If you're looking for precise, projectionable data that is going to give you the confidence to say 70% of our users think this, then you
Okay.
have to do a more formalized quantitative survey. Focus
Okay.
groups are great to get a lot of ideas, but you have to
Yeah.
be very careful, because if you have one strong personality in a focus group,
Yeah.
it will
Yeah.
bias the result.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, if the focus group isn't recruited correctly, and
Yeah.
you don't have the right demographics in the room, it's
Yeah.
not going to give you the best response. It may give you some ideas that you want to check with a
Yeah.
larger audience.
And mostly it comes from power users. So power users tend to be more like vocal about the direction they want the product to go in, or like the service to go in. But uh, it's like 1% of the audience, but more is about like not mainly about the strong personality, and not being the power user, like average user, or like more 90% of the audience. So
Well, and if you can get to them, figuring
okay.
out why people didn't buy again,
Okay.
depending on the product category that you're in. And it's not
Okay.
always possible,
Yeah.
but if you can identify people who bought your product once
Yeah.
and didn't buy it again, it's going to be painful. You're going to hear a lot of things you don't want to hear,
Yeah.
but you're going to hear things you need to hear.
Okay. Okay. So I have little bit on didn't buy because when doing on the website analysis or website like whenever we used to do conduct surveys, so the idea was that uh, when you always conduct interviews with non-buyers, they always come back about the price. Like it's not because they haven't voted or they haven't purchased, so they always play on the price. And if it's coming directly from the brand, if some third party is doing it, they might have different points. But if it's coming from the brand directly, they always like 50% of people will always talk about the price because they might see, like feel that might influence. Or so it tend to skew the data a little bit because they are not the real customers. They have been abandoned they have abandoned the website or this. If someone has voted with their money, or like if they have someone has bought the product, then their advice makes sense. Like based on that context, I'm just thinking that for repeat buying, because they have bought once, so they are qualified as such. Like they are, because
Yeah.
they have gone through that journey and they have tried to build that trust with the brand. So
Absolutely, and I think you're right. People will throw up price as an objection very often,
yeah.
and so one of the ways around it is you can ask questions like, "What do you think is a fair price for the product?" Not that you ever intend to sell it at that price, but um, if if the product was priced at that price point,
Okay.
would you buy it?
Okay.
Or did you buy something else?
Okay.
Yes, I bought this cosmetic instead
Yeah.
of that one.
Yeah.
Really? And what price did you pay for that?
Okay.
And so you can acknowledge,
Okay.
you can
Yeah.
acknowledge the price, um, but at the same time, you
You're
can
trying to,
also move past it.
yeah, the price point. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because people always want to pay less. Well,
Yeah.
you know what? Though they don't.
Yeah.
They say they do, but then if you do studies where you have three products and
Yeah.
you have a $2, a $3, and a $4 product,
Yeah.
they won't buy the $2 because they
Yeah.
think it's too cheap. There must be
Yeah.
something wrong.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then how do you move them between the three and the four? It has a lot to do with the
Because
proximity of
okay.
the other two pricing. In other words, if it's 2, 4, and 5,
Yeah.
or 2, 450 and 5, you
Yeah.
know what? A lot of people will buy the 5
Yeah.
because it's like, well, it's not that much more than the 450.
Yeah.
But if you do 2, 3, and 5,
Yeah.
everybody buys the 3.
Right. So that's,
So
yeah.
yeah, so
From
pricing is a science,
yeah.
and it is. I think it's one of the more interesting elements in marketing
Yeah.
because it really connects with the psychology of how we assign value to something.
Yeah. 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 And it says small win, like also the pricing, because if you can get the pricing right, it instantly improves your margins. And there's a lot of things which pricing can. And most of the brands are too afraid to touch pricing. Like they want to keep the pricing like it's a uh, like it's a non-discussed, it's a anathema sort of, like it's a that let don't touch the pricing sort of a way. So they don't want to, because either it seems too risky, or they feel that the customer will feel they are not being genuine if they keep on changing the pricing. So but price test tends to be very profitable, and it's a very high value activity, like if they can get it right. And I just wanted to share one this thing about pricing, that the recently concluded like Black Friday and this season is always good for introducing new pricing, because you will be always discounting. So you will be discounting as it is, so nobody will pay the full price. So it's best to roll out new price and discount on that instead of moving along with the old price. But there is a lot of things which brand can do around pricing, and I think it's underused. It's highly underused.
Well, and there are a lot of case studies where I think it might have been Wolf Schmidt vodka, where they actually um, took a look at the market and realized in the United States people didn't really know a lot about vodka. I mean,
Okay.
they drank it, but they did not really, the average consumer did not know the
Okay.
difference between a good vodka and a mediocre vodka. And
Okay.
so for a lot of them, the signal that this was a good vodka was that it
Was the
was higher
price?
priced.
Okay.
And so they pulled the product off the market, reintroduced it, introduced it at a higher price,
Yeah.
and sold more.
Yeah.
Sold
Yeah.
more
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because because the price communicated this was a good vodka.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, this, oh my God, we have to discount. Discounting put my favorite store out of business. They got into this situation where it was always, the product would come in and they'd have an inflated high price, and then
Yeah.
within 6 weeks it was always 40% off.
Yeah.
Well, it got to where people, they relied on it so often nobody bought it full price.
Yeah. Yeah.
They always waited for the discount. So
Yeah.
you can discount yourself to death.
Yeah, 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 and it loses the impact. Like more than 30%, we would recommend. Like in our experience, it start diluting the brand value. Like 10%
Mm-hmm.
is these starting point, and like 30 is the max. I like anything more than 30, you start questioning the quality. You start questioning the price, the whole logic around it, because it seems like too good to be true, or is there something fishy going around? Like it's not this thing. So yeah,
Yeah, I mean, because your price communicates a lot about the quality of your
value.
product. It
Yeah,
communicates, are you going to stand behind it?
yeah,
Is there enough margin that you're going to be able to support me if I buy this product? And I think, yes, there are consumers for whom the lowest price is always going to get them.
yeah,
And for brands and for businesses,
yeah,
serving the needs of that customer is a race to the death. It's a
yeah,
death spiral
yeah.
because no matter how low you go, someone else will always go
You
lower.
always yeah,
And price is good pricing, smart pricing is a differentiator.
yeah,
Trying to be the low cost provider unless you really are.
yeah, yeah. It's very
And it's dangerous, and it's also dangerous because you may have something, a product that you can make at a really low price,
yeah,
and you're going to control the market because you've
yeah,
got it at a low price.
yeah,
And I'm over here and I'm a much bigger company, and you
yeah,
know what, I can't really make that product at that price,
yeah,
but I don't have to because I
yeah,
got 10 other products that I can charge a high price for, and I can take
yeah,
my price on that product
yeah,
lower than you and
yeah.
drive you out of business.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So there has been a lot of case studies around it, and it's a common tactic. Like it's a very common tactic where brands try to. And there was this, I think diapers.com, or like some, which they used to, like there was a price war between diapers, and they lowered the price to diaper like less than $1 or something, and they were making money on other high ticket toys and this like other baby
Mm-hmm.
products. But they were taking a big hit on diaper, and it was always the get foot in the door kind of a product offer. So that's this thing. And uh, around the lifetime value, like just along with retention. So retention is more about understanding why people are buying what they are buying, and why they are repeat buying the whole product, but about how you maximize the lifetime value in the terms of keeping the relation, and also like keeping them for the long duration. So
So part of it is figuring out what the lifetime value is
yeah,
and looking at it in terms of over their lifetime, how much will they buy? And
okay,
also how much, if they are a loyal customer and they refer, what are their referrals worth?
okay,
And when you understand that number, now you can begin to say, okay, well, how much can we afford to
yeah, offer,
spend to
yeah,
keep a customer? What kind of incentives? And one of my favorite examples, and I think he wrote a book. I think the book is called Customers for Life. He owned a car dealership in
okay,
Texas, And he
Okay.
had the biggest Cadillac dealership in Texas, which is saying something.
Yeah.
And he figured out that at that time, his customers would buy a Cadillac or buy a new car every 3 years.
Okay.
And so when he looked at a customer, he didn't see at the time $10,000. He saw 100,000 or
Okay.
$200,000 because of
Yes.
all the
All.
purchases they would make. So
Okay.
when they came into his shop and they said, this isn't working right. And
Yeah.
his service tech was like, oh, well, that's going to be $50 to fix it. And the customer
Yeah.
got mad because they thought it should be
Yeah.
included. He's like, give it to him. And the service guy's, we're going to go bankrupt if we give away all that service. He says, we're going to go bankrupt if we don't. Because the customer is paying this
Yeah.
premium price.
Yeah.
Don't argue with them over the small things.
Yeah.
You'll
Yeah.
lose him. You know,
Yeah.
I and so a lot of car dealerships adopted this model, particularly in the first few years that you owned a car. The
Yeah. Yeah.
tune-ups were free
Yeah. Yeah.
because they were subsidizing future sales.
Yeah.
So, what's important to your customer? What do they need to keep buying? How do you make it easier for them
Okay.
in the long run? What rewards? The airlines did this, though they're
Yeah.
getting harder, but
Yeah.
airline miles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why do the airlines have miles?
Yeah.
Because I fly United because
Yeah.
I have a credit card with United. They
Yeah.
fly out of my city.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could fly down to Texas on Southwest, but if I fly on
Yeah.
United,
Yeah.
I can use my miles.
Yeah.
I can get more miles.
Yeah. 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 Okay. Okay. And so loyalty program comes and like understanding the whole thing and like structuring your customer journey along that like the holistic picture. So that makes a lot of sense. And I think for customer lifetime value, like because there is always like how much you can get, and there is a very interesting part about the referral piece, like how much you can leverage the customer to get more customer. And back to our user generated content also, that there is also some like attribution to that user generated content also. So if we consider that also
Absolutely.
in the picture, then a single customer. And in the terms of brand building, so how much brand plays into retention, like because there is a concept like Nike or Apple. So it's about the product, but it's also about how, and it's tough for small brands or like even for services company and all those things. But uh, yeah, so how someone like a small business should take a brand, and how much role it plays in retention. So
So your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room.
okay.
And I think that you need to figure out what you want people to say
Okay.
and then figure out how you create marketing to get them to say that.
Okay.
Yes, Nike, people are loyal to Nike. Yes, some of it is marketing and some of it is they make a good product.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, the brand supports the product. Coke and Pepsi are funny because Coke actually lost taste tests to
Yeah.
Pepsi.
Yeah. It is.
In blind taste tests, people actually liked the taste of Pepsi better.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they still reach for a Coke because they have that loyalty, that good feeling, those happy memories.
Yeah.
That's hard to build as a small business, but if you figure out what you want to be known for,
Okay.
and
Okay.
that, so for example, when I ran an agency and we were a small company, I had 8 to 10 people working for me. This was not a big company, but everybody in the city knew us, and they knew us for a couple of things. They knew that we were about educating our customers, about teaching and talking about marketing in plain English. And so the reputation was, if you don't understand something about marketing, take one of Lorraine's courses, read some of the books, read the blog, hire them just to look at some things that you're working on.
Okay.
And everything we did was designed to support
Then.
that perception.
Okay. Okay.
And it was very much what I wanted to be known for. And the other thing we wanted to be known for was being customer focused.
O-
And how we lived that
Okay.
was when you called that building, the phone was answered by a live person on the
Okay.
first ring. During office hours, we had no voicemail, no call center.
Okay.
And it surprised people. And it surprised people because I would answer the phone, even as the owner.
Yeah.
And they were like, Lorraine, is that you? Yeah. Yeah. What can I
Yeah.
do for you? And that was our brand. And that was very deliberate. So
Okay.
if you know what you want to be known for, oh, we want to be known for the highest quality. Well, then you damn well better build the highest quality.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
want to be known for fast delivery? You better be fast.
Okay. Okay.
You're not going to build brand loyalty. You're not going to build a brand. Loyalty comes, you build your brand
Yeah.
by living a certain value.
Yeah.
Loyalty comes when that value is relevant to your customers. So you may want to be known for your expertise, but if your customers don't care, it doesn't matter. I mean,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
you know, it. I knew that I wanted to be known for kind of marketing as a marketing educator.
Yeah.
If people didn't want to learn about marketing, you know what? I'd have had no loyalty.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So I think because what you're saying, because for most of the small businesses, it's they like a brand is an extension of the founder, so it's like an extension of founder, and it's not that much deliberate, but what this understanding has been that it's more like reverse engineered from what they care about and how would you want to know be known for, and then you combine both of them. So it's a little bit reverse engineered, but little bit I think more authentic and being more this thing, but it needs to matter. Like that's the I think it's because even if you are authentic, but it doesn't matter to the customer, then it's yeah, yeah, yeah. So
But
that's
it
really
was
important.
really interesting because it also has to matter to your employees. And we did an exercise, and I guess I'd been in business about 8 or 9 years at the time. And I
Okay.
asked my team if they could describe the company in 3 words, what would the 3 words be?
Okay.
And two of the three, I was like, yeah, that's that. And the third one, I was like, really? You think that's us? And they were like, yeah, it really is. And it
Okay.
wasn't bad. It was just
Different.
different than how I would have positioned it.
Okay.
And being open to listening to your employees about the business that
Yeah.
you are creating together.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, we would never have grown and established the reputation. I built the company to a point that somebody came along and said, I would like to buy it. And I was like, okay, let's talk about how much you want to pay for it.
Yeah.
And that would never have happened if I hadn't listened to my employees who had a different perspective and could see it objectively sometimes when I couldn't.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, I think, and that's the like, especially for every business, I would say like the how the brand employs prospect, but especially for the service industry and like for service business, because you are eventually leveraging their time and their expertise. So then they need to be on the same level. I think like in the terms of same understanding and same kind of how they want also to be perceived in the industry. So that's also there. And in the terms of with this what we known for, like if we extend this in 2024, so what kind of is there any room for this thing? Because in the terms of mind space, there is always like a limitation, or always you have to like find new blue oceans, or like blue versus red, like you need to always keep on like shifting. So is there any space, or is there always space for a different personality or different brand? So some mind space are taken.
I understand the question. I'm trying to think how to phrase this. Sometimes no. So, I call it selling broccoli.
Okay.
And if you think about a child and you try to give them a vegetable, broccoli, spinach,
Okay.
they may not like it. It
Yeah.
may be good for them,
Yeah.
but they don't want to eat it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
You may have a product or a service that you think is a great idea, that you see a real need for,
Okay.
but the market thinks it's broccoli. When I left corporate, one of the things that I was really good at in corporate America was going into broken teams and figuring out what was broken, why it wasn't working, and
Okay.
then reorganizing it and getting the team working together and creating a high performance team. And it
Okay.
was a real skill set. And people that I worked with and HR directors were like, "You're really good at this. You really understand how to do this." And I thought,
Okay.
okay, I'll go out on my own. I can teach other managers how to do this.
Okay.
The problem is that was broccoli. It was
Okay.
2002, and there were way more jobs than people. I'm sorry, there were way more people than jobs.
Yeah.
And companies were like, you know what? You don't like it? Go away. We'll find new people.
Yeah.
And pay to create a high performance team? Who
Yeah.
cares? There's always more people. And
Okay.
so there are times that you've got something you want to sell that you're really excited about,
Yeah. Yeah.
and sell it in a way that you want to sell it that the market doesn't want. And that's why you have to start with the customer. What do
Okay.
they want? And now, how do I deliver that in a way that's true to me? And maybe it doesn't line up. And if it doesn't line up, you don't have a business.
Okay. Okay.
I
Okay.
know that sounds it's not what people want to hear, but I want to do this and it's my passion. Good. It's a hobby.
Yeah.
It's not a business. A
Yeah.
business starts with the customer
Yeah.
and your passion fills
Need to
their
have.
need.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
doesn't start with you.
Yeah. Okay, okay. So coming back to, so there is always need, and if there is a demand, then your product will fit with that. Like it's if your expertise has a like a requirement, then there is always opportunity. Like there is always that need needs to be there, and the positioning is open. Like a positioning can be done in that niche. Okay, okay, that makes sense. And in terms of this thing about like because in your experience has been about the website and the like in the terms of marketing the website and the need for the website and how you channel with the social media platform, and there was a common debate and most people don't get that, like they might have a huge following on YouTube or Insta, but they might not have a good or great website game. So what's your take, and what's the best solution for those kind of creators or like for that kind of brands?
So the one thing that I have seen with digital platforms over the years is they come and go, and the
Okay.
rules change. The algorithm changes. What's acceptable today is not acceptable tomorrow. Now you
Okay.
need to advertise to get visibility.
Yeah.
The only place you control your message, your content, and everything is your website. And so
Okay.
before you worry about any of the rest of that, you have to have a good home.
Okay.
Once you have that, then you can begin to distribute content widely.
Okay.
But it has to start with your website. I mean, it's just that simple.
Okay. Okay. So it's more for long-term play and from a more stable this thing, like a for
Yep.
stable home. And in this, like now, I think in the last part, so we have to talk about AI. So AI, like we discussed, touched upon this in the middle also, but it has created a major disruption this year. So. How much you feel like shortcomings? We discussed some part of it, but if you see any other shortcomings in AI model or as of now? what's the implementation, and what's the good part, and how you use it, if you
Oh.
use it as it is, like at the current state. So
So AI, when used correctly, is a huge time saver. So,
okay.
for example, I will take the transcript of my podcast
Yeah.
and I will give it to AI and ask it to write a 3 paragraph summary.
Okay.
And
Okay.
because I've used it over and over again, I have my description down, my instructions down. I want
Yeah.
it casual but informative, not too cheesy, not too
Yeah.
salesy. And I just
Yeah.
paste that in, I paste the transcript, and in seconds, I have a summary.
Yeah.
I have taken blog posts that I have written
Okay.
and I have given it to AI and say, turn this blog post into 10, 5 bullet points,
Cool.
10 bullet points,
Okay.
into headlines I can use for social media. And
Okay.
so when I take my content and I give it to AI,
Yeah.
it's really helpful. I have taken articles that I have written and I've asked it to maybe rewrite it, give me a new introduction, give me a different spin. I'm less happy with that because
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
pulling from the internet, and so much of the internet is salesy and
Yeah.
pushy. And so the stuff that comes back just doesn't feel like me. And so I struggle with that.
Okay.
I have seen some really interesting work with AI when I want to learn about a new topic. Maybe I'm
Okay.
going to write an article. Maybe I've been hot, like, because again, I do content for other companies. So I might say, okay, I'm going to write web copy for a company that sells filtration tools for manufacturing. I don't know anything
Okay.
about that.
Yeah.
What questions should I ask?
Okay.
And it will
Okay.
give me a list of 10 questions. Now I
Okay.
can go and I can ask my client. They
Yeah.
can answer those questions. Now I have the answers.
Yeah.
Now I can go back to AI and say, turn this answer into a
Okay.
blog post.
Okay. Okay.
So it is a collaborative effort, and I think AI is at its best when you're using it for collaboration.
Okay. 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 Yeah, yeah, yeah. So to summarize more around the research side of things, not on the original thought, but more like the broad bullet points in the topic, or like from a research perspective, and then more about the repurpose, like not the
Mm-hmm.
original thought, but if someone has the original thought, then AI will be able to repurpose the content and turn it around, or like make it in different formats. So I think that's the uh,
Absolutely.
so original idea, I do agree. Like original idea is still the limitation, and uh, but what's the trend like next 2 years? What's your prediction? Like it's very tough, but still, it's
I think you're going to see refinement in the AI tools. Right now,
okay.
everybody, not everybody, a lot of people are using the
Yeah,
free versions of ChatGPT,
yeah.
and they think that that's what AI is, but that's really just the tip of the iceberg.
Okay.
I think you're going to see more refinement in video and in photography, and I also think you're going to see the backlash where people are going to push back.
Okay.
And for example, there was an attorney who used AI to write some kind of case brief, and it
Okay.
cited 2 cases that weren't real.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he just so happened to have a judge who was an expert in that particular kind of case law.
Yeah.
And
That
the guy
part.
lost his job. I mean, he lost his job,
Okay.
and rightfully so.
Yeah.
I teach marketing at a university,
Yeah.
and I did an assignment and I read a number of the papers, and it was
Yeah.
so obvious to me
What's
that
written
they'd
by
been
you?
written by AI.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I did not tell the students that I thought they had used ChatGPT.
Yeah.
All I said is, this reads as if it was written by AI.
Yeah. Okay.
It's superficial,
Yeah.
badly written, and it doesn't answer my question. and they
Yeah.
all failed that assignment because it didn't because there
Sort of
was
fluff.
a subtlety to the
Yeah.
question that
Yeah.
AI didn't get.
Yeah.
And so I think you're going to see it as a professor. We have lots of discussions on campus about how to use it, how to teach it to the students, and also how to control it so that it doesn't get out of hand.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so there's a lot of discussion around controlling also, and control is definitely, but before the control, because currently it's being so like it get caught, like in your case. So it's not at that scale where we need to worry about the control, but there is always a question about the control and how far it can go in the terms of real person. But currently, it's not there in the terms of impersonating a real person. So I think that's still AI will get caught. So okay, okay, okay. So that's thank you so much for your time, and this was
Pleasure.
really useful. Just to add for our listeners that you can look if you are looking for some advice and you want a private working session with Lauren to get feedback on your marketing, you can head over to more than a few words.com slash office hours is office dash hours, and you can discuss with her like we have discussed over here, like about email, social media, content, ppc, seo, email, the whole as a virtual cmo, and yeah, so that's been really insightful for us, and I hope this was insightful. So any final anything you want to add?
No, I think that's great. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's been a lovely conversation.